I open the camera up, it works. All right. So we have rain this morning, and I'm very excited about it because I have 4 of my garden rows planted. They're 50-foot rows, and my garden is about 5,000 square feet. What I wanted to talk about this morning is just how many seeds do you need and how big does your garden need to be in order to actually create food for the now and create food for the later, because you have vegetables that you eat fresh and you have vegetables and garden food that you eat later. So it's kind of like you have to plan 2 gardens. Hey, Avonleanne, good to see ya. So it takes some planning, because if all you're doing is thinking about what's going into your canning jars, you forget that you need to eat at every meal currently now and have the food be as fresh as possible. During the growing season, you should be eating fresh. During winter, you should be eating canned or root storage or that kind of thing. So I have my greens in the spring, I have my radishes in the spring, and then about this time of year, at least in the greenhouses, I start to put in my warm weather crops, even though it's still April. Hey, Village Setter. Hey, Jean Marie. Sorry, why do I always want to call you Jean Marie? Jean Miller and Raymond. All right, so I'm very grateful for the rain this morning. I was feeling it in my bones. God is going to send rain. I need to get these beds in so that I don't have to have a watering system. We water here off of a flood irrigation system that's based on ditches and canals, and the water's not in there until May. But I had a hunch that if I would plant them, the rain would come, and it did. I finished planting those 4 rows last night, and it rained all night, and it's raining this morning, so I feel very, very grateful for that. Hello, Melissa. You'll forgive me, huh, Jean? All right. So what I want to talk about is when I start greens don't take a whole lot of space. You can do greens in like a 4x8 bed, and it produces a lot of greens. However, as you're harvesting, you need to be planting some greens somewhere else. As I harvest, I plant. So I actually try to plant something every single day because I'm harvesting every single day. It doesn't mean that I'm planting a whole bed every single day. Just as I'm out harvesting, I'm noticing where there's holes and I'm putting something else in. For the greenhouse, which is where everything is currently growing and being harvested right now, we're getting a lot of tot soy, mustard greens. I want to see what you're wearing before you go out, okay? And I want you to go check on Gates before you go out, just so that you seem kind of dazed.
Like I just woke up.
Like you just woke up and maybe you're not all put together in your brain. So leave the milk bucket here. No, not where the dog's going to get it. Come, leave the milk bucket here and go make sure you got the sheep out and the gates closed before you come get the milk bucket, okay? Hall Homestead said, good morning. We rotate our garden. Spring plants and fall plants are the same, and summer plants. We triple our ability to grow food that way. Okay, I'm going to read that a little more carefully. We rotate our gardens. Spring plants and fall plants are the same, and summer plants. I like that. Yeah, so that's a really good point. With a lot of things like radishes and greens and cruciferous, if I remember right, foods, you plant them in the spring, but a lot of times they actually do better in the fall. Things like cabbages, radishes, greens. If you plant them to have a fall harvest, they actually can do better than they do in spring, because increased heat makes them bolt, whereas you're going from warm to colder in the fall. So thank you for pointing that out, Hall Homestead. I am not good at that yet. We have a 3-month, 90-day growing season. And because of that, sometimes it's very overwhelming to still have a massive spring garden that's suddenly, finally coming on, and then start thinking about planting our fall garden, because our July and August, we barely have enough time to ripen tomatoes and that kind of thing. And so our garden is massive in July and August. It's not over, it's finally in production. And so we're canning, we are harvesting, we are, as everybody is, watering intensively at that time of year. But yet your July and August is when you need to start planting things for your fall garden. And so I appreciate that distinction. Good morning. Hey, Suze. Evelyn said, I had 2 kale plants that somehow made it over the winter and have been giving us just enough for our breakfast each morning. Such a blessing. That's amazing. Good job. So I have a whole list of things that I wanted to talk about this morning. So we have a 5,000 square foot garden, and it is not big enough to grow our fall food and our spring food, spring, summer. Again, because our growing season is so short, I have to double up on things in order to even get a summer harvest. So what I do is anything that is able to go on the ground but is going to be slightly frost sensitive, what I'll do is like potatoes. I'll plant my potatoes, and then on top of my potatoes, I'll plant Swiss chard. And what that does is it gives me 2 harvests out of the same row. The Swiss chard will come up, and it'll give a little bit of frost protection to the potatoes. The potatoes will be behind the Swiss chard. And so I'll have a harvest that we're harvesting of Swiss chard while we're waiting for the potatoes to come up. We're harvesting the Swiss chard more aggressively once we get into warm weather, so that all the Swiss chard is gone by the time the potatoes need to put on their full growth. I also do the same thing with Chinese cabbage in potatoes. And sometimes I'll put in Swiss chard in corn, but by the time it's late enough to put corn in, I feel like the Swiss chard kind of fights with the corn because we're full on warm weather at that point, and the corn doesn't really need that competition from Swiss chard. Let's see. Good morning, Joy of the Garden. Good morning, SJWs. All right, so I'm going to go through this. So to be able to grow food for fresh eating, plus having enough for canning or dry storage or freezing or that kind of thing, you need a massive amount of seeds. And I think a lot of people don't understand that what they're doing is just like a hobby type garden. Because if all you're growing is a few tomatoes, and if all you're growing is a few broccoli plants, the tomatoes, as long as you plant enough tomatoes, you might be able to can some of them. But if all you're doing is a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here, that's more like a snack type of a garden. And so, like for instance, my mom grows container gardens, but she has like 50 self-watering containers in her garden. And she has bigger planting boxes that are little swimming pools. She has in-ground garden. So she lives in town, but she has like 50 grow boxes. She doesn't have 1, 2, or 3 because she wants to put in a couple tomatoes. And so even though my goal is not to be alarmist or to be downplaying what it is that you are doing, if that's the size of your garden, if you're doing, a couple container gardens here and there with just a few things in it, you need to get food storage. If that's all you plan for your garden, you need to go buy some food storage, because that's not going to be enough food to actually feed you fresh and feed you through the winter. So that's what I recommend, is just to really look very squarely at what you're doing and look at it for the truth that is in front of you and say, my garden is not big enough to feed my family. I need to go buy some food storage. Evan Leanne said, do you just plant the Swiss chard seeds directly into the soil? So what I do is I plant my potatoes and they're done. And then I go over and I very heavy broadcast Swiss chard, and then I sprinkle dirt over the top of it, and then it's done. And what'll come up first is the Swiss chard. And we'll have a lot of harvest off that Swiss chard before the potatoes even come up. Village Setter said, the deer eat our kale after we're done with it. I planted in the front yard for that reason. They're fun to watch. That is fun. Fear the Honey Badger, hello. Mary's Heirloom Seeds, hello. Now, Mary's Heirloom Seeds is a great place if you're trying for varieties. I don't remember, Mary, do you sell bulk seeds? Once you know what kind of seeds you like, once you've found something that you like the flavor of, I highly recommend get it in bulk. Don't just have 1 or 2 little packages. For me, when I buy my seeds, I buy them a pound at a time because that's the kind of planting I need to put in order to, 1, use it as a living mulch, 2, feed my rabbits, 3, feed my pigs, 4, feed my family, and then leave some to go to seed so that I can start saving my own seed for myself. Okay, Mary's Heirloom Seeds said we have a few bulk options under Sprouts. So you guys could go see Mary's Heirloom Seeds if you want to see a really good broad range of seeds. I highly recommend, when possible, purchase your food storage as seeds. For instance, buy a 50-pound bag of beans that you really like, and you can use those seeds to plant in your garden. There are certain food storage items that you can use as seeds. So for those few items, keep that in mind, get the varieties that you like, and then use those as seeds. Paige, are you about done? So Michael Adrian Smith said, can you make hooch? As in like alcohol? Yes, you can totally make alcohol. Even if you make kombucha, you're making a little bit of alcohol because it does have alcohol in it. Acadian French Fry said, any suggestions on where to get seeds? And my gardener is sold out of a lot of seeds I want. I need heat-resistant plants. I live in zone 9B. Okay, so where you are, I'm trying to think. I think Mary, aren't you in Southern California? So she has some warm weather seeds. Another place that you can get, if you haven't checked out Asian Garden #2 Table, Asian Garden to Table, she is in Florida and she sells seeds and she is amazing. She has these massive raised beds that they've put in. She feeds her family all year round with greens and vegetables, and she also shows you how to cook them. So Asian, maybe I should put it in the comments, Asian Garden to Table. I'll write it out. Asian Garden to Table. Florida gardening channel. And she is amazing. She's somebody I really love to watch because not only does she show you how to plant, grow, and harvest, she also shows you how to cook it. I don't know if she has bulk seeds. Let's see, Evan Leanne asking because I forgot to plant my Swiss Chard, so I will go out and plant some today, LOL. Mary's Heirloom Seeds, okay, we already said that. Okay, Mary's Heirloom Seeds does have bulk options under Sprouts. Okay, Log Cabin Bakery and Farm. We have a cattle panel greenhouse that I've grown chard, kale, and lettuce in this winter here in Northeast Arkansas. Good job. It's been a colder than usual April, hoping to get the summer crops in this week. Yeah, I don't get summer crops in until at least May 15th. If I do plant them out May 15th, they have to have cover and protection on them in my area until after the end of June. So that's when I put in. But for right now, I can be putting in all sorts of cold season. I can put in beets. I've done beets, peas, Swiss chard, Chinese cabbage, radishes, and then I've got all the stuff out in the greenhouses. But that's what I have in the row gardens as of yesterday.
Did you say potatoes?
Keep going, honey. You've got to get it all done before you can go work. Dickie Dunn said, how many hours a week do you put into your farm? Well, it depends on what you, how you classify that. For one thing, because I YouTube, making videos while trying to farm is a challenge because instead of being able to just go in and get the job done, I have a camera that I'm hauling around with me and that kind of thing. Honey, work on getting everything that is not needing to be scrubbed done first. You've got all sorts of cups and everything to do. Our problem this morning is that the girls are not working on the farm with me. They are going in to help their granny at her house. And so we've got a lot to get done, more than usual. Okay, so how many hours? How many hours a week? It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm planting, Paigey, just fill up your bowl. Okay. How many hours a week? Sorry, I've got a goat in one ear and a kid trying to do dishes in the other ear. Okay, turn the water off, honey, and just do dip and scrub, okay? Thank you. How many hours a week? It all meshes together is the problem. I homeschool, and so I've got kids that I'm teaching how to do all the stuff I do. We've got animals. We've got the garden. We've got the greenhouse. And then we've got the inside of the house with the house food preparation and food preservation and that kind of thing. So if you ask me how much time a day I spend on farming, that would be kind of tricky because everything that I do is connected to farming. So pretty much this is a lifestyle for us. At the level that we do it at, it's very much just, to some degree all day, every day. But it fluctuates throughout the season. Sorry, I'm having a very hard time focusing.
I'm sorry.
Grandma Ginger said, don't forget medicinal herb seeds. So the place that I get medicinal herb seeds is Strictly Medicinal Herbs or Strictly Medicinal Seeds, or another name for it is Horizon. I'll write that one down too. Horizon Herbs or medicinal herb seeds, also known as Strictly Medicinal Seeds. And they have hundreds of varieties of medicinal herb seeds. Acadian French fries said, thank you. I'm in Northern California. Yeah, Pine Tree is really good. I've ordered from them before. Stone's Throw Acre said, good morning, everyone. Acadian French fry said, been getting hail yesterday and still hitting cold snaps on and off here. Very strange. Yeah, our weather has been a struggle because we haven't had any rain. We've had a lot of wind. Usually we've got a lot of wind in like March. This year we've had a lot of wind in April and no rain. So we got rain this morning, which is very, very exciting. Besot says, thank you for all your videos. Work, sister. Great job. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Avon Leon said, do you soak your beans before you plant them? I don't. Our soil is cold until July. We don't hit 70 degrees in soil temps till July. And so it's always risky putting warm weather seeds in the ground. And if it takes them just a little bit longer to come up, it's not a bad thing. If I want them to come up soon, like with pea seeds sometimes, I will soak them. Let's see. Amy Stiles said, it's been cold here in Western Washington too. Planted just a bit of onions and potatoes, waiting on the rest until May. Yeah. That's why it's really nice to have easy, inexpensive season extenders. I'll plug what it is that I've done this year. I do have a big greenhouse, but buying it new would be $3,500 plus like probably $600 to have it delivered. And so I don't feel like that's really money-wise for most people. Unless you're a business, I think it's really hard to spend $3,500 on a structure like that. Even Arms Family Homestead, back in the day, they got their greenhouse with a grant. They didn't have $10,000 to put into their big greenhouse. And so what I've done this year is worked really hard to get that $100 self-heating greenhouse plan up so that people can make them and grow in them, because they're self-heating. The compost inside warms the soil, gives the plants bottom heat, gets them growing. Our last frost date is June 28th, and yet we're in full harvest mode right now. It's the endish of April, and we're in full harvest mode. And if I had planted them just in a greenhouse, I wouldn't be having the success I'm having now because it wouldn't have bottom heat. So for those of you who are interested in that, on my Dirtpatcheaven Etsy store, I think I have the link in the description. I have those plans. I'm charging $7.99 for the plans. So I tried to make it really affordable. Brooke said, you're an inspiration growing in cold climates. Well, I think, if you're in a warm climate, you have a different set of issues than you do in a cold climate. We don't have as big a deal with overwhelming pests. We don't have heat to deal with. We have the cold and the drought. I don't know if drought's the right word. We live in a high cold desert, so we don't get a lot of moisture. But we don't have pests the same way that the South does. All right.
Although we do have poles.
Yeah, Moho Palm said, who needs a drum set when you have a sink full of dishes? Hey, MLP.
Sorry.
Melissa said, I am south of you and sometimes get a 120-day growing season, but can't put warm weather crops out until mid-May. I struggle every year getting my tomatoes to ripen before the heavy frost, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Melissa's, you're somewhere close to us because we're southeast Idaho. Grandma Ginger said, Julie's smaller hotbed greenhouse fits in odd, smaller places too. Yeah. I wanted it to be something that was really, really productive, but cheap and small footprint. A lot of times in big greenhouses, most of your, maybe not most, but 25, 30, up to 50% of your space is pathways if you're not super efficient about how you plant it. And so I have 2 growing beds in a third the space of what my big greenhouse is in my little cow panel greenhouse. So, all right, let's see if I missed anything. So you need to do the math on the size of garden it would take to feed your family. Fresh eating now, canning food for later, root storage, that kind of thing. For me, I could use a garden twice the size of what I have, and it still probably wouldn't fully feed my family if I didn't do the season extension with the little greenhouse. Make sure that you're getting local varieties, things that will actually grow well in your area, things that can fight pests. For instance, I like to grow Pagey. Maybe now's not the right time to be doing that. How about not? Just get a couple cups out and leave that where it was, because it's probably not the time to be getting out bulk food storage and trying to put it in a container. Or bring it here and let me do it. Okay, since you guys are kind of on a time crunch this morning. Let's see, what was I saying? Look at, okay, list says local varieties. So for instance, I grow a lot of kohlrabi because the cabbage moths don't care about it. I have a really hard time growing regular cabbage because the cabbage moths love it. I don't put a lot of root crops like carrots and turnips in my soil because I have nematodes that will eat them. Instead, I put turnips and carrots and things like that in my raised beds where the soil has not been in contact with nematodes. Village Setter said, focusing this year on growing more of fewer things. Yes, that's what I'm doing too. I like to have a lot of what is successful and less experimentation. MLP said, our last frost first week of June and starts first week of September. Short season. Yes. Yeah. We get our last frost is June 28th, the last couple years, and our first frost is in September. Yeah. However, I did have over 300 days of growing season in the front hotbed last year. I grew sweet potatoes, and I had a fig out there that did well, and tomatoes and peppers. Let's see. Do I rotate my crops? I rotate my in-ground row crops, yes. And for my hotbeds, I'm always putting new material in on the top. So that also gets, to some intents and purposes, it does get rotated, but not like I don't switch beds. Instead, what I do is I'm always adding new material to the top when I want the bed to heat back up. Okay, Marie is asking what on my farm I have already eaten or sold. Hope you don't mind me asking. Okay, so at this point in the year, in April, we've been eating a lot of greens. Tatsoi, which is an Asian green. We have herbs that we've already harvested. We just harvested celery. We've got parsley on. We've got basil on, those kind of things. And we harvested quite a bit of rhubarb. All of that out of the little greenhouse. We've just started harvesting out of the big greenhouse. Evan Leanne said, last season I did that too. Got real with myself, what we love, and stopped experimenting. So we had a lot to can, and it was fantastic. First time making tomato paste. I'm jealous on that one. I've never had enough tomatoes ripe all at one time to make tomato paste. I've been able to make, what I'll do is I'll set them like on the wood stove before we need to use the wood stove, or on shelves, and we will ripen all of our green tomatoes on shelves. But it never really has the same flavor as something that was vine ripened. So I've never made tomato paste, but we have had shelf ripened tomatoes that we put into the freezer and into fresh cooking. Andrea Blue said, my tomato and pepper seedlings are doing poorly. Darn crust on top of soil. Yeah, it's true. Yes, Village Sitter, thanks for the thumbs up. Acadian French Fry said, conquer your future. Oh, wait, you're talking to somebody else. Maria said, at first I saw you endorsing house. Why now with a farm that puts you in there? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. What house am I endorsing? Are you talking about greenhouse? Why now with a farm? What puts you in there? Are you talking about the greenhouse? Andrea Blue said, my tomatoes went from green to rotten last year. Yeah, sometimes we have blossom end rot a little bit. I have a friend close to me that has a dairy herd, and she likes to pour milk into her plants and water it in and make the calcium more available. Yeah, I find that we lose about a quarter to a third of our tomatoes to blossom end rot, which is a calcium deficiency. Last year we poured milk and crushed eggshells into our hills when we planted our tomatoes, and it seemed to make a difference. We had a lot of tomatoes. We couldn't get to them because we had so many squash plants in the way, but once we got the squash plants out and we looked, we're like, oh, we had a lot of tomatoes in here that we could not see. What happened was we thought we were planting watermelons next to the tomatoes, and it turned out that the seeds in the packet were not watermelon seeds. They were winter.
There were a few kennels, but there were three.
Right.
So,
The something went wrong with the package of seeds that we'd ordered, and it was winter squash, which everybody knows gets massive. So it was planted next to the row of tomatoes. And by the time we figured it out, it had like engulfed the tomato patch because the winter squash just kind of grew out and into the tomatoes. And it's just, sometimes stuff like that happens.
the nice thing was that it fed the pigs.
It did. It fed the pigs for a lot of months in the fall. Let's see. So low tunnels are good for extending the season. I DIY it, LOL. Okay, so low tunnels in our area work. I've struggled with them. I do pretty well if it's a fabric, like the frost cloth fabric. Frost, that could work for us for low tunnels. But plastic, yeah, solid plastic doesn't work well here because we do get really bright sunlight on days that are cold. And so you can't lift the solid plastic off because of the temperatures. But if you don't lift the plastic off, the sun is going to bake it and it'll actually cook your plants. So what I have found works is either a greenhouse that I can vent, or if I'm going to do something like a low tunnel, it needs to have frost cloth on it, not normal plastic. And then the wind has a tendency to beat it up really bad. And so I've really struggled with season extenders like that are like the cold frames or the low tunnels, just because of the amount of involvement I have to have in going out and lifting things up and putting things down and lifting things up and putting things down. I have so much going on at any given time. And it's not something I can really send kids out to do because in order to protect the investment of the frost cloths, usually it needs to be an adult that does the lifting. Avonleanne said, I crushed Tums pills and added to the top of soil and it worked. That's awesome. Maria said, those beautiful houses in the middle of the forest and those igloo type of house. Oh, you're talking about the Airbnbs that we went and stayed at. Yeah, there we went and saw some really beautiful Airbnbs that were tiny houses. Marijuana King said, add oyster shell. Add oyster shell grit to your garden every year. You'll never have to worry about calcium. That's a great idea. Okay, she's working on breakfast, so go ahead and get it strained away from the computer. Thank you. Or actually leave it for her to strain.
It needs to right now.
Does it? Okay. Sheila said, I do the crushed eggshells. Andrea Blue said, oh, wow, we get expired milk, not rotten milk from a gas station for pigs. I need to set aside some for my plants. She says that with new plants, she waters it half and half milk, half water. And then for established fruit trees, when she does their irrigation, she pours the milk on straight into the roots of the trees, but she makes sure that it's got water flowing to irrigate it at the same time. Yeah, thanks, Grandma Ginger. I finally figured that out. She's talking about the Airbnb. MLP, fish heads work great for blossom and rot. Make a 12-inch hole, add the head, add 6 inches of soil, and then you plant pack. That's awesome. Do you ever have a problem with like cats or anything digging your garden up to get to the heads? I've never tried anything like that. It is what the Indians used to do, huh? No, let's see. Andrea Blue said, I got fungus gnats. I wonder if that's what we had in our potatoes in fall of last year, because there was some kind of gnat that was in the soil. The potatoes were fine, but there was some kind of gnat in the soil that when the girls went out to harvest the potatoes, the gnat, even though it was fall and it was cold, the gnats would come out and bite them really bad.
Yeah, that's our neighbor called them
Alligator bugs?
Yeah, because if you got a spyglass and
Yeah.
looked down at them, they have a very long.
Okay, I need lids on the milk and I need breakfast to continue to be moving forward, okay? MLP said we do 2 layers, frost, then plastic, that we can remove, but you're right, it takes time. Yeah, and if your system is straightforward and it works for you, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work for anybody else. If it works for you and your season is warm enough, at this point our soil is still so cold that most things actually won't germinate. The roots will rot in the ground. And if I had the money to go buy enough frost cloth for 15 rows that are 50 feet long, I would probably try that. But I don't know if my frost cloths would survive children trying to help with stuff in mud. Probably in a raised bed, I'd probably feel comfortable doing it because then you wouldn't have the mud problem. Idaho Hillbilly said, I heard last week the bird flu was found in eastern Idaho. Have you heard anything? That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to work so hard on getting some of these structures that are more beautiful invented, put together for things like quail is because I haven't heard that we have it here, but and my chickens are pretty sequestered. We don't have a whole lot of wild birds around where the chickens are, and it's not something I worry about a whole lot. But for those people who do worry about it, I think quail is a better bet because you can really kind of sequester quail a little bit better. Sheila Fade said, I've learned from my mistakes for my 4x8 raised garden to put my squash in a hanging basket instead of in a raised bed. I love that idea. I think that's fantastic. My squash does not do well in my big hotbeds. I think it's too breathless. I think there's not enough air circulating. A lot of other things do really great in the hotbed, but squash, cucumbers, and tomatoes do not love it. I think they get so big and it gets so airless in there. I think it really, they're just not happy. They'll kind of put on, a little bit of fruit, a few flowers, but they're just anemic in there. I think putting it in a hanging basket is an amazing idea. There's a sheep. Did you hear Heidi? Andrew Blue said, thank you, Julianne. You're welcome. Let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing? The fungus gnats haven't bitten us. Darn preemptive text. Oh, gotcha. Hey, Deep South. So, Deep South Homestead, when we visited them, it's the first time I had seen a big garden that's meant to grow food for you all year round. So, if you haven't already subscribed to Deep South Homestead, even though I live in the north, the tips and tricks that they have over on their channel for actually feeding yourself, you don't find that information in a whole lot of other places of people actually legitimately growing all their own food. But Deep South Homestead does, so I highly recommend them. Let's see. MLP said, yeah, the frost cloth layer is only in our raised garden beds. It's way too messy for our in-ground garden. The cloth freezes to the ground. Yes, thank you for that clarification. I put frost cloths on everything that's a raised garden because that wooden frame just kind of protects it, gives you something to attach it to. So yes, that's what I do too. Yeah, Andrea Blue said the fungus gnats have to have something bitten. They're just slightly larger than biting gnats. In my area, the biters come out in warm weather and are in my mulch, not my dirt areas. Gotcha. Grandma Ginger said there's a natural way to get rid of gnats. Put mosquito bits in your water can and water within. They are natural bacteria that won't harm people. Oh, interesting. Log Cabin Bakery and Farm said, for the gnats, I spray the soil with the water and hydrogen peroxide solution. If there are a lot of gnats, it may take a couple applications. See, and we only get them in like September and October, or maybe it was just October. It was bizarre. We hadn't had these nasty bugs. It was when it was really cold. It was freezing at night, and yet they were coming out every time they went out to dig potatoes. It was horrible. They were nasty.
They were still getting through.
Andrea said, I don't know what those biting gnats are, but the itch and pinch feel from the bot was intensely annoying. Yes, yes. Okay, Acadian French Fry said we put chicken wire to keep the cats out of the fish heads. Let's see. MLP says for fish head, pour 2 tablespoons of garden lime over the fish heads and it kills the smell and the pest. That's awesome. Okay, and Andrea said I use scrap bits of fencing on top of soil to keep chickens and cats from scratching soil. I like that. I have done that in the past. Recently, I've started to do some different things just because I'm trying so hard to develop so many different things at once that my time, I feel like a crazy person trying to get it all done. And so I've been spending a little bit more money lately to make it easier. And also easy for the kids to come behind and help me with it. Concrete Future said, Idaho Hillbilly was watching an upstate My Chicken channel whose flock got hit. 0 local cases was assumption it came from the sky, possibly sprayed like chemtrail. Ooh, Wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? Small Town Bill said, if you have the issue of deer, how do you keep them out of your garden? Okay, so we do have deer everywhere here. Our garden is not affected by the deer. What I did is around my garden, I planted a lot of wild seedling fruit trees all around my garden, and they come into my property and browse on the fruit trees. Like they're not grafted fruit trees, they're just like service berries, sea buckthorn, elderberry, Siberian pea shrub, those kinds of things all around my garden. Not within 20 feet of my garden, but surrounding the garden about 20 feet out, I have trees like a hedge. And then about 10 feet from the garden, I have I have a swale. 10 feet from the garden, I have a swale that has another layer of plants in it, comfrey and riverbank willow. That's a very thin willow. They don't grow to be trees. They just stay as thin little bushes. And so I have layers of things for the deer to browse on directly around the garden. And my neighbor has a lot of trees and he feeds the deer. And so there's so much food around the garden for the deer to eat that they don't mess with my garden. I never lose anything in my garden. But if you go a quarter of a mile that way, people can't keep gardens unless you've got like an 8-foot fence that the deer can't clear. So that's what I do.
Although, didn't the deer like knock over my corn that first year that I was growing it?
No, that was wind. Well, it might have been deer. We haven't lost.
They went through a.
We haven't lost anything to the deer eating. A couple times last year, we had deer that flipped out running across the road that's on our property. They jumped across the road and ran through our garden and knocked some corn over. But that's the only loss that we've had. It wasn't from them eating it. It was from them running through the garden and knocking it over.
Yeah.
Let's see. Morning, Archegos farmstead ship. Let's see. Keep going. Dalia, hello. Deborah Elliott said, seems the food processing plants are burning up. Anything you buy with seeds in them are burning up. As in they're selling really fast or that they're not high quality. L2 Survive said, skipped. Paul Goetschy, back to Eden Garden, grows all his own food year-round in Sikkim, Washington. Yes, he does. And he has really good stuff that he talks about. I struggle to get enough wood chips to be able to do what he does. And then it can sometimes be hard to get enough fertility in the soil if you use a lot of wood chips. So wherever I have wood chips, I either have to have ducks or I have to put a massive amount of rabbit manure on it. Hey, Honey Hollow. I'm working on getting my garden set up. Want to plant sweet potatoes, but I'm told they don't get planted around here till June. So I plant my sweet potatoes here in the hotbeds in March. And that's how I grow sweet potatoes. Put them in a hotbed, put them in March. Andrew Blue said, where do you get your tot soy and bok choy seeds from? I get my bulk seeds from Main Street Seed and Supply. But if you're wanting little packages of seeds, you can find them pretty much anywhere. But I buy them in bulk. I buy them by the pound. So I get them from Main Street Seed and Supply. Sheila said, I wish I can take up half of my backyard for garden. Well, that's what we did when we were in town. We planted all our property to garden. Okay, my battery's about to die. Honey, can you go get it, Dad? He needs to be up and ready for work. Andrew Blue said, I want to use snow barricade plastic fencing on top of garden to keep critters out this year. Lay fence on the ground until plants grow stronger and cover soil surface. Interesting. Honey, you need to go wake up Dad. Thank you. Are you sure? Okay, you're up. Paige has breakfast, honey. Monique, thank you, honey. Monique M said a seed potato question. It's autumn here. Can't buy seed potatoes. I have organic eating potatoes I want to store just in case. How would I store them until it's time to chip them? Oh my. Okay, so you're wanting, I have organic eating potatoes I want to store just in case. Okay, so what I do is I keep them in something where the open air is flowing because you're autumn, you just dug up your potatoes, right? So take your potatoes and open many holes. You want many, many holes in whatever you store them in. If you don't have a root cellar or a basement, we don't have a legitimate, we don't have, go ahead and put it all the way up, okay? No, don't put it there. Go put it all the way up. We don't have a root cellar. We have a basement. So we put them in the cool basement with a towel or something over the top, but we make sure there's good airflow, lots and lots of airflow. And that's how you store them. And that's what we do with our potatoes. We don't buy seed potatoes. We use our potatoes from last year. We saved all of our green potatoes. Green potatoes make excellent seed potatoes. Tiny potatoes that you don't want to eat make excellent seed potatoes. Save them. Yeah, we haven't bought seed potatoes for 2 years now because in 2020 you couldn't find seed potatoes. You couldn't buy them. You couldn't find them. They were not available if the seed stores were even open. And so I just took my potatoes that were in the basement that were imperfect and I planted them.
And they actually turned out really good.
I have a garden that grows deer. Must be nice. I do not have a garden that grows deer, but my neighbor does. He feeds them all winter long so that he can watch them. He loves to watch them. Acadian French fries said, we've had to fence everything in to keep the deer out, but we also do not have much property, so it was possible. Yeah, fencing is very expensive. I just went and spent a lot of money on fencing because prices are going up. Anything that I need that is infrastructure, I'm getting it now. I'm getting it now because I don't know. I don't. The more that I can let my animals eat off the property by grazing and things like that, the less feed I have to buy. But I'm also cutting way back on my animals, even further than I was before, because feed prices continue to go up in a way that means I'm having to limit my breeding stock. We've got at least one piggy that's having babies probably this week. But it means that I'm having to get rid of some of my other breeding stock in order to be able to afford to feed her because we haven't been able to find any bulk, locally grown grain that we can afford. And so she's just eating commercial pellets right now. And that's $20, $21 a bag. And so we're having to cut way back on everything. So, yeah. All right. Something else I want to talk about with that. Something else I want to talk about with that is, I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? All right. As fertilizer prices go up, as fuel prices go up, as feed prices go up, as all of those things go up, it's going to be interesting to see what people food prices do and availability. And so making everything do many things, anything that you bring on the property, any animals that you keep, the more they can do the meat, fiber, manure thing, milk, meat, cheese, or feeding other animals. If you have an animal that only has one use, you probably don't want it. Our geese are a struggle right now. I'm kind of thinking we're going to sell the rest of our geese just because we haven't had a lot of rain this year. There isn't a lot of grass for them, and we don't get eggs from them. They just are grazing around our fruit trees, which is great, but ducks can graze around fruit trees too, and they give us eggs. So I'm thinking we're going to get rid of all the geese. It's lovely that they can protect the ducks. It's lovely that they let us know when strangers are on the property, but it's one purpose and one purpose alone that doesn't actually end up in the fridge is not enough. Evan Leanne said, I think this year I will get some Nanking cherries. Last year they were little and only got a few, and the birds thanked me for them. Yeah, I don't know why we don't have more of a problem here. We grow a lot of cherries and a lot of fruit, but the birds don't bother them. Our neighbor, his fruit trees get just stripped bare. I don't know if it's because we've got the cats or because we've got the chickens, maybe because we have so many animals that the birds are not familiar with, that it scares them away, but we don't have problems with that. Knock on wood. Deer burgers, yeah. We are not a big hunting family. We grow a lot of our meat, but occasionally our neighbor will bring us some deer meat. Andrea Blue said, M.I. Gardner did a video on this recently. Store your taters in slightly moistened sand in a not too warm area, nor below freezing. Yeah, you don't want your potatoes to freeze. I have never bothered to put them in sand. I try to keep things as super, super, super simple as possible. Our state is the potato state. We're in Idaho. And so we harvest in September and October. And we just put the potatoes in boxes that have really good ventilation and put them in a cool space. If you don't have a basement, store them under your bed. You want it to be somewhere that you don't have a lot of sunlight, and you don't want any sunlight. You want to cover them with something and then put them under your bed, but you don't want them in an airtight container. And as soon as they start to sprout, find somewhere to plant them. I planted our first potatoes, I think the end of February, beginning of March, and I put them in my little self-heating greenhouse, and they're 18 inches tall now. I'm ready to start harvesting them here pretty soon, and we're in April. So having the right structures for the right time of year. If you're in a milder climate than us, like for Danny and Wanda with Deep South Homestead, don't they plant their potatoes in like January and February? Otherwise, they don't have enough cool season to not kill them. So their potatoes in Mississippi get like this big, and they don't store well there. And so what they do is they can their potatoes for eating. They don't store them for a long time. And then when it starts to sprout, they plant their potatoes so that they have something for the next year. So it's really helpful if you can find an expert for your local area, somebody who actually grows all their food on their property. Don't go with somebody who's kind of like, yeah, I grow a little bit of food and this is how I do it, and I buy all this stuff. Instead, if you can find somebody like Deep South Homestead and find out how they do it, then you'll be buying the right thing for your area. Most gardening, you do have to spend a little bit of money, and it's really important that that money that you spend goes to what you actually need instead of some kind of weird gadget that doesn't really work. You want to make sure that you're taking your advice not necessarily from a beginner, but from somebody who's actually already growing their own food. Otherwise, you can waste a lot of money following along with somebody else's experiments, which is why I didn't put up a plan for the greenhouse until I saw that it was working. I didn't want people to waste their time on something that was just crap. But I've been very excited on how it worked, how it looks, how inexpensive it was. And so, yeah, you have to be really careful in gardening what you spend your money on. Start small, experiment, find something that works, move to the next experiment, but try and keep the expenses really low when you're first starting. Grandma Ginger said they have a livestock guard dog that keeps the deer, antelope, and predators away. Andrew Blue said, my taters stored in a bucket and some on top of a garden pot full of dirt at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, rotted into mush. Yeah, you've got to be really careful with potatoes. They have to breathe. They have enzymes in them that make everything start to sprout. And if you keep them in an airtight container, they can't breathe, and they'll rot. Airflow, 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 so important. Conquer Your Future said, Monique, I stored my potatoes in free stacking tomato boxes. Yes, that's a fantastic thing to store them in. From Costco, just did single layers in the last 8 to 9 months, looking excellent. Yeah. Peach boxes also work very well. They have really good ventilation. Potato boxes are not good, not the ones they transport them in, because they don't have holes in them, especially not the ones that have lids. Let's see. Avon Leanne said, I got seeds from Main Street as per you. Love the prices and the speed that they came to. Thank you for that knowledge. I only bought their smallest amounts. It's only feeding 2. Yeah. If I was buying small amounts, I probably wouldn't buy it from Main Street Seed and Supply because they have a somewhat limited breadth of seeds. If I was buying small amounts, I really do like Mary's Heirloom Seeds. I like M.I. Gardner. I like Baker's Creek. I like Territorial Seed Company. Those are the ones that I would buy from if I was buying a packet at a time. If you're getting bulk, I think Main Street Seed and Supply is really worth it. But I do wish they carried a little bit more as far as varieties. Some of my favorite varieties they do not carry, and I wish that they did. Oh, that's a good point. Teresa Crouch said laundry basket is great to store them in. Yes, as long as it's small enough you can pick it up. For us, we get some baskets from the dollar store, and they're about this big. They're about, how wide is that? 8 inches? 10 inches? 8 inches, 8 inches wide, and about a foot long, and about 8 inches deep. And those are the baskets we really like to put our potatoes in, because then children can help with the harvesting. Like, you can fill this little bucket with potatoes, and instead of having to sort them again, you just walk them in, they put them on the shelf, and it means that when you're ready to use your potatoes, you just pull it out, small, 1 week's worth of potatoes, take it upstairs. And I don't like to store my potatoes in really big containers because it's hard to move them. My husband has back problems. I have autoimmune disorders, and my kids are kids. I need small containers so that we can move things easily. Monique said, thank you. Where did that go? Oh, I don't know where any. Okay, it skipped. So many. Monique said, thank you. That was exactly what I needed. Airflow. Got it. Sorry, I didn't explain well. I was running out of characters. Funny. Okay, Acadian said, if you could only choose one kind of animal to raise for food, which would you choose? Oh, that's really hard. Probably milk goats, because with milk goats, well, okay, but I don't get any other animals. They crisscross, guys. They crisscross. For milk production and for feeding the rest of the homestead, I would choose milk goats. For fast meat production, I would choose rabbits. For amazing fat, I would choose pigs. For eggs, I would choose chickens. For permaculturing, I would choose and eggs, I would choose ducks. So because I do love the sheep. For grazing and for meat and for wool, I would choose sheep. But none of those animals is a complete package. They all have something different in their manure that benefits the homestead. They all have something different that's an easy output for them that benefits my home. I raise all of them because I benefit differently from each of them. And so depending on what your needs are, my needs are pretty high. I need really good food, and I need a lot of it. My family needs a lot of good food. And what I do allows me to put a massive amount of food in my home at a price that I could never buy it for. And so I raise all of them. It just means that I have to live my life differently in order to facilitate that, Okay, Village Sitter said, no deer in our backyard. They don't come inside the fence. Front yard not fenced. The deer only come after the growing season is over, when they're hungry, huh? Sheila Fade said, just got me a rabbit and going to get some chickens. Good job. Honey Hollow Homestead said, everybody is saying shortages and high prices. My goats are free ranged, as are my birds. Even my steer, who identifies as a goat, free ranges. I have a sheep that identifies as a goat too. His new home is being delivered tomorrow. Yeah. If you have enough property and you're in an area where you get a lot of long season grass, it's great to have a lot of grazers. In my area, we have to bring hay in. It's good to know your local hay producer. And I buy it a year at a time. I get all my hay at the beginning of the season and make sure that I have it and I get it covered. and I put it on pallets. I never leave hay on the ground. It is so expensive. You can lose a ton of hay. If you buy 8 tons of hay and you don't put it on pallets, you end up losing 1 ton of hay by the end of the season because the moisture from the ground soaks up into your hay and ruins it. Let's see. The Color Drop said we plant potatoes on Valentine's Day in Texas. Yes. So it's very, very important to find experts for your local area. If I went from Idaho and I went to Texas to live, or if I went from Idaho and I went to Mississippi to live, I would need to find a local gardener very quickly and say, okay, when am I supposed to put it in? Because for them, they need to plant potatoes really early. Otherwise, it gets too hot too quickly and they can't grow potatoes. Whereas I might need to wait a little bit longer to put in sweet potatoes. I don't know. I have no information about that local growing area. So find a local expert. Conquer Your Future said, I have a husky that identifies as a little dog, as her 2-year private training classes were mostly older people with smaller breeds. Andrew Blue said we built 1 and 2 foot tall raised beds from roofing tin. They're circular and easy to move with forks and tractor if necessary. We moved mine to get away from farmers' chemicals. Very clever. Yeah, you have to be careful about that. Okay, Monique said something else and I missed it. I'm in a temperate climate. It's cold now by our standards. Keeping them in the garage should be nicely cold but won't freeze. Still, we'll try to buy seed potatoes too for extra varieties. Yeah. Yeah, if our garage didn't freeze, we'd keep them in the garage, but it does freeze pretty bad. Village Sitter said, I have to plant all of my potatoes in buckets and grow bags because we have something that likes to eat them before we harvest them. They dig under the soil and make tunnels. So that's, if you're in our area, that's voles. The way that I have found to get around that is that I sink my garden beds and then I have a V-shaped, how do I show this? A V-shaped garden bed with mounds on the side so that it's a deep V. And then I plant my potatoes in the bottom of that so that there's still a V after I've covered them with soil. And when I water once a week, but I water a couple inches. And by watering a couple inches deep through the whole bed, what it does is it drowns out the vole tunnels so that they have to recreate their tunnels every week, and eventually they give up. The bad thing about that is as you're trying to water, you're watering into those tunnels. I don't know how to get around that, but I understand what you're saying because our first couple years of gardening here, the voles got in and ate our potatoes. They ate our tomatoes. They pulled tomatoes off the tomatoes and buried them in the soil under the tomato plant. They're horrible. But I found the way to get around that is to flood them. When you water, you have to water deeply enough that it floods them. And you have to do it often enough that they can't build their tunnels back. Conquer Your Future said, Monique, I'm just putting cardboard between layers. I didn't lose one out of about 150. I must have lost something there. All right, Honey Hollow Homestead said, I built raised beds out of pallet wood, putting goat barn clean out on the hill by the drive for planting winter squash, potatoes, and other stuff that needs to be grown for a while before harvesting. Good job. Love the small basket storage idea. Avonleanne said, thank you for so much knowledge. And Julie, so glad to catch you live. I need to go make breakfast now, so I hope to catch another live again soon. Have a wonderful day. You too, Avonleanne. Andrea Blue said, what is the taste difference between mutton and lamb? I know I adore lamb roast. For our sheep, you can't tell the difference. We don't grain our sheep, and they're also raised on goat's milk if they're not on their mom. And you can take a 2-year-old sheep that we raised or a lamb that we raised, and except for the size of the cut of meat, you wouldn't know the difference in taste. So it really depends on how you raise them. And probably it matters what breed, but every breed that we've raised that way. Yeah, but we also are really sensitive to lamb. If we buy it in the grocery store, we don't like it. We don't like it at all. We don't. Ugh. Yeah, so it's not that we're immune to the flavor of bad meat, bad lamb, bad mutton. It's just that for whatever reason, our sheep don't taste bad no matter how old they get. We butchered a 5-year-old a few years back, and she tasted like lamb. But she was raised on goat's milk, so I don't know if that kind of thing makes a difference. Concrete Future said you can ferment cow poop for electricity and cooking gas. Also, the milk, butter, cheese, yogurt benefit India does concrete or brick wall area to keep them during part of the day to harvest in the manure. Yeah, I think harvesting your manure is a great thing. Everything benefits from your animal manure. I know that hauling manure is really hard for me, so I try to put my animals as close to where the manure needs to be as possible, and I let them apply it themselves when possible. So I put the ducks in the orchard and let them poop around the fruit trees while they eat the grass. I put the sheep around the non-fruiting trees and let them eat all the grass around all the windbreak trees and let them put their manure down. And I'm working right now on a system for the rabbits so that I can put the rabbits as close to the garden as I can get them and not have to move manure. Honey Hollow Homestead said keeping hay from being wasted by goats is a challenge. We have found, what's the name of the hay net, hay chicks. So we use the hay chicks super slow feeder for our sheep and goats. And that has worked really well. When we see that they're wasting it a lot, they're not eating it as well as they should be, we put it in a hay chicks hay net.
And then they have to eat what's off the ground.
Yeah. Sand Hollow Homestead says 65 in El Paso this morning, 92 today, visiting my granddaughter for her birthday. Oh, fun. Wow, that's going to be pretty weather. Dean says, good morning, everyone. Great advice. Got my 2 gardens planted and have a 3rd going in soon. Good. I think that's really what you have to do. If you really want to feed your family, as soon as you have one planted, you start another one. You just keep putting it in until the season changes, and then you put another one in, but you put a different, whatever likes that season, you put it in. My goal this year is not to stop, that I will really focus and put other things on my family for them to do when I'm in the middle of getting the fall garden in. Instead of being too focused on harvesting, I want to be more focused on planting. My children are so noisy.
Eating breakfast after coming in.
I know you
chores.
are. Paige has been noisy all morning. It's been struggles town.
Sorry.
All right, Brooke said, do sheets work as frost cloths? Yes, definitely yes. White is better than any other color because then when it's really cold outside, they still get sunlight coming in. And they're way more rugged than frost cloth. They're so rugged. I like twin size sheets a little better than the others because, you know, a queen size or king size is so wide that it's hard to manage the overlapping stuff. So I like twin size. Andrew Blue said, I do not like the flavor of commercial pigs anymore. So bad. Yeah, I don't like that pork flavor so much. We have found that we have raised commercial hogs too on commercial feed, and I'm not a fan of the flavor. Our little pigs that we raise on squash and tomatoes and goat's milk, the flavor of the fat is so nice that I will cut chunks of fat from our bacon and just cook the fat because we don't like the lean as much as we like the fat. If I cook bacon, it doesn't melt in the pan. It's crunchy like a cracker when you cook it super, super slow for a really long time. So it takes a little bit of the fat out. But then it's like a fat cracker that tastes like bacon.
And the fat, it isn't gross even though you're chewing on
it's
oil.
It's so good. It's like eating cheese. And it's firm and it's crispy. So hungry right now suddenly. But what we have found is that our preferred form of bacon is bacon that's like got fat like that and only a little bit of lean. We don't like the lean in our bacon anymore because the fat is so good. So good. Bless you. All right, so Monique and I'm selling 1 gilt and 1 boar from those particular pigs because with feed prices right now, even though these guys are very inexpensive to feed, my efficiency alarms are going off at having 4 pigs right now. It's driving me crazy because if our 1 gilt had her babies, and we've got like 12 babies out there, I'm very anxious about having redundancy at all, which probably doesn't make any sense. And I probably should keep them because I totally can afford to feed them. I totally can. And we really love that fatty bacon. But I have major anxiety about making these kind of decisions. Do I keep the geese? Do I get rid of the geese? Is it costing me anything to feed them? No, because they're just eating grass. But anytime I have a chore that doesn't immediately bring back results for our family that go into the fridge, I have to think 4 times over before I decide to keep that animal. The geese are living on grass right now. They're not costing us anything. However, I'm anxious about them because we haven't had rain. I'm anxious that they won't have grass in a short time without rain, and I don't want to feed them. And we don't have eggs coming in from them right now. And so you guys can probably see that I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning thinking about what animals to keep and what animals not to keep. Monique said, wow, really interested that your older sheep taste the same as lamb. Can't wait to have my own homegrown and see how much better it is. Yeah, ours is amazing. Here's the other thing, though. Fear makes a huge difference in what your animals taste like. If your animal goes to a butcher and they have to be in a trailer for a long time, and then you get to the butcher and they're not immediately butchered, they're having 24, 36, 48 hours of fear, terror. They're scared. Fear makes meat taste bad. I've eaten rabbit before that I saw that animal was terrified and suffering when someone butchered it. We could not stand to eat the meat. It tasted so bad. So that taste is fear. It's not that the animal tastes bad. It's that it was terrified and it had all those fear hormones running through its body just before it died. And the fear hormones made the meat taste bad. So whenever we butcher a lamb or a sheep or anything else on our property, we do it on our property. We don't take it somewhere else. With our pigs, when we butcher them on our property. They're drinking milk the second before they die, and they don't know that they're dead. At least I don't think they know that they're dead. They go fast. They go super, super fast. And especially our lambs, we butcher them fast. And so they don't experience fear, and so the meat tastes different. If you're eating meat at a restaurant or something and the meat tastes like has a strange smell, flavor combination that is unpleasant, I would bet you that the animal experienced terror or pain just before it died. Dean Washington or Dean Waugh? Dean Waugh, I planted beans and climbing tomatoes around all of our fences, as well as some indeterminate tomatoes for extra food. They are burning down all the food processing plants. What? They are burning down all the food processing plants, 20 in the last 2 months. That's right. I forgot about that. There was Azure Standard. Azure Standard was on fire last week. It burned. What? Was there more than Azure Standard? Oh my gosh, that makes me feel really unhappy. I don't need to know that. I was already up at 2 o'clock this morning thinking about all this stuff. I forgot. Azure. Did you guys know that? The Azure Standard, their headquarters burned to the ground last week. Like the main bulk food supplier for the United States, that their headquarters burned down. Babe, did you hear that?
What?
Did you know Azure Standard burned to the ground last week? Their headquarters. So their main food packing, what did it affect? It said it affected their liquid goods. So it would be things like soy sauce and oil and that kind of thing. So their liquid pouring facility burned. Their fruit packing facility also burned. Their main bulk food facilities did not. But it has slowed down their production because their headquarters burned. Oh, I forgot about that. All right. Who said that it's 64 today in Ohio? Okay. Empty Nester Homestead said 64 degrees today in Ohio, going to 85 on Saturday. We had a couple days that were in the 60s in the beginning of April, and we had one day in the 70s, like 70 degrees, maybe 69, 70. We've had one day like that. Right now, I'm just praying for rain. We need rain so bad. We need rain, 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 rain. Rain. We need rain. Archegos Farm said, just bought a property that had goats on it previously. Lots of leftover manure that sat for over a year. I would like to use it to get started. Can you think of any reasons I shouldn't? No, I would totally use it. So my friend that has a goat dairy, her soil is black. What they do is they let their manure sit, they turn it, sit, they turn it, and then they till it into their garden. But then she also uses milk as a fertilizer in her garden. If it's a new plant start, she mixes it half water, half milk. If it's an established fruit tree, something like that, she'll just pour solid milk on it and then water that in with irrigation water. And I've never seen anybody with soil the way that she has soil. Everybody in her surrounding area has bad soil, and she has amazing soil. Dalia said, you are sharing your life with us. The children are part of that, so it's all good.
You bet.
Struggles. Leslie Empty Nester said, are you at the cabin or house? Did you move? So we're in our house. The cabin is just right there in our pasture. That's why we were able to do what we did, is that for those years that we were in the cabin, it was still on our property. We were just on the property to take care of the fruit trees while the big house had renters. Andrea Blue said, what did you say? It skipped. Okay. Andrea Blue said, the meat from the grocery store is off tasting. We've raised Kuni, lots of fat little meat, but tasty regardless. Duroc and Berkshire York mix. They were good, but COVID messes with our taste buds. Yeah, our taste buds are pretty messed up. However, our homegrown meat, we like that just fine. My favorite, if I wasn't raising our little Kuni, Julianne American guinea hog crosses, if we weren't raising that, we'd love Berkshire. I just can't afford to feed them. Andrea Blue said, our IPPs, which is, for those of you who don't know, Idaho pasture pig, have excellent fat to meat ratio with no off aftertaste, even with a COVID taste palate. Oh, it's driving me nuts. Everything has the aftertaste of flatulence. That's what we have really struggled with after COVID, is the ammonia.
I can't eat eggs.
Paige can't eat eggs.
I can't eat.
We struggle a lot with, we eat them anyway, but it's not, a lot of the things that we used to love in life are no longer loves. Now they're just, well, I have to eat this because I have to eat something. I'm hoping that it comes back. I'm hoping that taste and smell come back. Honey Hollow Homestead said, I'm hoping to get 1 or 2 feeder lambs this year. Yeah, I love to keep lambs because they graze differently than goats. Sheep are amazing for grass. You put sheep on grass and that grass becomes happy. And so I wouldn't want just goats or just sheep. They work really well together. Yeah, Honey Hollow Homestead said, I can't butcher my steer at home. So when we had big animals or animals before I learned how to butcher my own, we had a mobile service that would come and butcher the animals here. And that was perfect because they walk out to the field, they shoot the animal, and it's done. And they have their truck that goes back there and picks it up, and it's done. The animal doesn't have to be afraid. It doesn't have to be in a trailer, nothing like that. Because, yeah, some animals are too big. If we were doing our big 300-pound pigs still, I would not be looking forward to butchering. But our little pigs, we switched to little pigs because we can afford to feed them. We like the fat, and we love to be able to just butcher them ourselves. Acadian French Fry said, that has always been a concern for me. If I raised animals for food, I don't want them to suffer or have any fear before they're processed. And that's just learning. The website that I recommend is Farmstead Meatsmith. I'll write it down. Farmstead Meatsmith. Meatsmith. Brandon Sheard. And they're actually in Oklahoma now. They're in Tulsa. And so if you want to learn how to butcher animals really well, that's how you're going to do it. Learn how to butcher from him because you can do it with just a knife and a sharpener. I don't have expensive saws or anything like that. I cut at the joint, and that's how I butcher my animals. I don't worry about making them tiny proportions. I butcher to my own ability. Gapy Scrub said they announced today that it wasn't found to be arson, but not sure I believe that. It seems kind of convenient, doesn't it? It seems that talking about Azure Standard, it seems a little bit fishy as far as timing. Andrew Blue said, I'm trying to convince my husband no more meat processor. His job takes so much time and energy from him, especially as weather cools. He's a propane guy. So my girls and I, we butcher the animals. My husband, if he's available, will come in for a few minutes at a time. Recently, what we've done is I'll dispatch the animal and clean it, and then we'll bring it in on the table, and John will actually cut the animal up because he is more meticulous than I am. I will get the animal clean and dead and brought in, and then John will come in and he will put it in the Ziplocs, put it in the freezer, make sure everything's labeled, because when I do it, it's not even labeled.
I was going to say, the important part is I'll write the label.
He writes the label on. For me, I'm just like, well, it's a meat. We can cook it, whatever it happens to be. We can pull it out and it's all meat.
Unless it's black cat. Well, we've done
Then it's dog food.
Yeah.
But I don't, but that's another difference. John will actually save meat that is less than perfect and write dog food on it. For me, if it's less than perfect, I cook it up and I immediately like feed it to cats or something. I don't actually keep anything that's less than perfect meat in the freezer. And so there's a difference between our skill sets and our interest. He likes to label things. I don't. I just get it done and put it in the freezer. But then I'm the one that's usually cooking it. So, you know, I didn't really care that I didn't know what meat I was pulling out. But Paige has started to cook more. Kaya started to cook more. So it's really nice that John labels things so that they can tell what they're pulling out.
Yeah, like the ribs last night.
Village Setter said, I wish I could add more animals. See, and I think that efficiency. As we get further into this whole COVID thing, as we get further into this Ukraine-Russia thing, I cut back. I try to be more efficient. I try to pay more attention to what I'm putting in and what I'm taking out and make sure that it pays for itself and that I'm not overburdening myself with something that is non-essential. I need to be only doing those things that bring back a really big payback. Anything that is kind of neutral payback, maybe not such a big payback, I don't do that. I get rid of it. DW said, what is the best rabbit type? It depends on what you're using it for. You can get Angora rabbits and they'll give you wool. You can get, chinchilla rabbits, and then you can use you can use them for fur, but they're slow growing. For me, what I use my rabbits for is rabbit manure and meat, and I also sell them when I need a little bit more cash flow on the farm. I'd rather keep them forever and just have lots of manure, but that is not economical. So the breed that I keep is a special homestead breed that is New Zealand mixed with a little bit of Rex, and they are amazing. They're fantastic. Speaking of which, were you guys super thorough with the rabbits today? Because I'm not going out to check on them once you're gone. Can you go check, please? It looks like Dad's getting ready to go. Run, Kaya. Acadian French Fry said, it feels intentional. See, I don't know. It hurts my heart to know that such a great resource has been struck by something like this. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it did seem like very strange timing. Oh my gosh, Andrew Blue said Walmart distribution center in Plainfield, Indiana burned. A veg processing facility near Salina, California also. Haven't even touched on the cyber attacks on food distributors that shut down cooking units. Sherry Campbell said, love your channel. Hey. I want meat rabbits, but won't get them if I can't cull or butcher them myself. Any suggestions to enable me to be able to get comfortable culling them? Do them a little bit younger, maybe. It's harder doing it younger because they're cute still. But we butcher at 8 or 10 weeks now because we just can't eat a 12-week rabbit. They're too big. It's too much meat. I would say my best advice would be make friends with somebody who butchers rabbits. Go watch them do it. See if you like the way that they do it. And then have them teach you on one of their own rabbits. Like pay them for a rabbit and then butcher it at their place. The reason for this is that I bought rabbits from somebody for a long time and I was really impressed with their setup. And then I went and watched them butcher a rabbit and it totally put me off butchering rabbits. It seemed so cruel and they suffered and they screamed and it was terrible. And so I went and put together like a hodgepodge of how I do it. What I do is I have a heavy short stick. You hang the rabbit by their hind leg while holding it. You bop them on the head, and then you have your friend who's standing next to you with big tree loppers, and you cut the head off as soon as you hit them. Because when you hit them, it just stuns them. You don't want them coming back from consciousness and suffering. So we bop them, cut the head off immediately, and then proceed down the line and do that. And that's how we do it. My friend Catherine over at Little Bits of Heaven Homestead, she does it with the broomstick method by putting the rabbit down, broomstick on its neck. Don't put pressure, just have it hold still, and then reach down, grab its hind legs, step on the broomstick, and pull up to break their neck. That's how she does it, and she is a great homesteader. I do it my way because that's just the way that I like to do it. Probably if I had Catherine walk me through it and she was there to help me, I would feel different with, I would feel comfortable doing it her way because I'd seen and done it myself with her help. I think that makes a massive difference. Having guidance. By the way, Farmstead Meatsmith, he does do classes where he will come and butcher an animal for you, and you can let people pay to come and watch and participate in the butcher so that you can recoup the cost of having him come butcher your animal. That's how we learned to do it. We went to one of his classes in Mapleton, Utah, and I think it cost us $150 a piece to take that class, and as such, we were hands off. We were just auditing the class, but we walked away knowing how to butcher a pig, and it's paid us back so many times. So if you want to take a class, Farmstead Meatsmith, he does live in Tulsa, Oklahoma now, so he's in the States instead of in British Columbia. And I highly recommend taking, if you can't take one of his classes in person, at least go be part of his paid membership. It's a monthly membership, but you get all his videos, you get everything you need. Well, Idaho Hillbilly said we had 7 days in a row of snow up here last week. We had a couple days, but mostly we just had really bad wind. Hey, Mom, how are you? The girls are trying to get ready to come. But everybody's good? And you and the goats and everybody have hay? Have fun? You got everything you need? Mom, by the way, can I borrow your grow light? When the kids come, can I please have your shop light that you said I could borrow? All right, Susan Gortva said, I just learned this last night, milk as fertilizer. I know, isn't that amazing? I've heard about it. There was a permaculture pasture, not pastor, pasture as in grasslands, who said that he would put milk and water in his weed sprayer and go spray it on his grass, and it made a massive difference in his growing. The one thing is that if you have milk animals that are then going to graze on that grass, you have to make sure you don't have any milk-borne pathogens in your milk. For instance, if you have a goat with CAE, which is a milk-borne disease, if you have a goat with CAE, you would not want to spray your pasture with milk like that and then have your other goats graze on it, because then they would get CAE. Does that make sense? CAE is not something that transmits to humans, but it does transmit to other goats. And it causes, if I remember correctly, it causes arthritis in goats. Okay, Log Cabin Bakery and Farm said, do you have a link or code for Main Street Seeds? While listening to live, I've been shopping and about to order. That is very kind. I do not have a link for Main Street Seed and Supply. I do have a link for Marianne's Heirloom Seeds and also for MI Gardener. But I think the way that Main Street Seed and Supply keeps their costs so low is that they keep things very, very simple as far as their advertising strategy. Kathy Marston said, I want to start hotbed today. Okay, without rabbit manure. I do not have manure. It's raining. Are you sure you want to start a hotbed today? Girls, make sure you have, I guess, a better coat on, maybe. Grandma Ginger Farm, Dean Washington is correct. It seems odd that so many burned in such a small period of time. Learn to process your own, and for large animals, get neighbors to help. Yes, neighbors to help if you've got a big animal, and send them home with some meat. Are you guys taking the dog? You're taking the dog, right? Is Dad? Ask Dad if he's taking the dog. You are, right?
To sit at your mom's place?
Are you sitting at my mom's place the whole time?
No. I need to work.
Oh yeah. You can't take the dog. What are you talking about?
I was wondering what you.
I forgot what day it was. I thought it was Saturday. Why did I think it was Saturday? I don't know why.
Because Mom's tired.
Well, I haven't eaten yet. I'm talking
Why
too much.
didn't you? I have.
Because
food
it's
right
really
next to you.
chewing in front. Maybe put him down in the kennel until I can come down and get him after the live stream.
Here, this way.
Andrea said, yeah, I think that's good advice. Andrea's talking to Sherry Campbell. It's hard. You have to get used to it, or perhaps have a helper, and maybe the helper can dispatch for you as you butcher till you get comfortable. So for me, I don't like to butcher unless I have helpers. I don't butcher unless I have my 2 kids home. And if it's a big butcher, what I really like to do is I'll do the killing and the cleaning, and then I bring the animal in and I let my husband take it apart. And that way I have a break and it's not an all-day process and it's not too much. But even with rabbits and ducks, like, I don't butcher them. I do butcher them. With small animals, my children are the ones outside. Oh, it says we're trying to reconnect. Oh, wait. There we go. All right. With small animals, the kids kill and clean it outside. But then for the internal organs, they bring it into me and I pluck every last little bit thing that they missed. And I clean the inside, I take the innards out, and then I put it in a freezer bag and I put it in the freezer. And so it's a team effort. They kill and clean outside, I finish it inside, which means instead of it being a several-hour operation, it takes maybe an hour between the 3 of us. Honey Hollow Homestead said, I can't bring myself to raise pigs even though I eat pork. Well, and being honest with yourself about that is a big deal. It's much less expensive just to have somebody else raise it for you. It's really true. Yeah. So for some things, it's just wisdom to know a local farmer and save the money to be able to purchase something, have it butchered and put it in your freezer, and to acknowledge that limitation in your own resources. Because your energy and your chore time is a resource. Don't squander it on something that you can have somebody else raise easier. Monique said, I have the same concern. For bigger animals, I'll get the mobile butcher to come and do it, but I will need to do quail, rabbit, chickens, ducks myself. Yeah. And also weather makes a difference. For us, we butcher in the fall or even in the winter. We like to butcher pigs when the temperatures at night are in the 30s so that we can hang them in the smokehouse and let them cure. Pardon me while I eat something. Oh, I lost it. Andrea Blue said, the ammonia smell and sulfur aftertaste is awful. I have kidney and liver weakness, and I was fearing the ammonia was backing up in my blood. Thank you for mentioning ammonia. Sigh of relief. Yeah. For me, it's that ammonia smell. Oh. I get it in the grocery store sometimes when anything chemically, anything that is made out of chemicals, smells like ammonia, and I almost can taste it like behind my ears. It's so bad. Yeah, it's really an interesting world, isn't it? Almost Heaven Homestead said Europe butchering has different cuts from how we do it here in the US. They go along the muscle rather than against the muscle. Interesting. So when I butcher, I cut at the joint, and I don't cut the bone. If I'm doing things like roasts, I will cut it off the bone if I need something small. Otherwise, I will package it as a leg of lamb. If I want to have it for something special, I'll package it as a leg of lamb and leave it like that. I do not mess around with fancy cuts of any kind. And John made sausage last week from one of our last commercial hogs. We did 2 commercial hogs last year. We did a Duroc hamp mix, and they had a lot of lean meat on them. We don't like to eat that like as a roast. It doesn't have enough fat on it. But John made it up with sausage, and it was very good. Honey Hollow said, mobile butcher is not an option here, but the butcher is not that far away. So what we have found is that our mobile butcher and all of our local butchers are backed up 2 years out. Very difficult to get animals in because a lot of people in other states are bringing their animals here to be butchered because their butchers shut down during COVID and then went out of business. And so our local butchers are slammed because people are bringing animals from out of state to be processed here. Sheila said, I want to learn how to prepare pig and cow and sheep. Yeah, I don't mind a small pig and a normal sheep. A cow, I have helped with processing cows, but they're so big. Here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize about butchering a medium-sized animal. You have to have a freezer big enough that you can spread the meat out so that it can cool quickly enough that it doesn't go rancid, that it doesn't go bad on you. So the reason why we butcher in the fall when we do a big animal is because we have to let the carcass cool overnight in the smokehouse. So we dispatch the animal, we clean the animal, and we have a whole animal hang either in the garage or in the smokehouse. And so the weather has to be cool enough that it can pull moisture and heat out of the carcass. And then over the next 2 or 3 days, as we have time, we'll bring in a half or a quarter of an animal. We'll process it. We'll put it in the freezer. We'll let it freeze. And then we'll go get the next quarter and we'll process it on the kitchen table. We will get it cut up. We will put it in the freezer. We'll let it freeze. If you try to take a whole big pig or a whole big sheep and take it directly from dead to processed, you're going to have rotten meat in your freezer because your freezer will not be able to keep up with all the warmth in that meat. So when you butcher, pick your coldest time of year, unless you're in our area where it's not the coldest time of year or we'd freeze outside trying to butcher. So for us, it's like November. November is a really good time for us. Kill the animal, clean it, hang it for a day, maybe up to 3 days to get it processed, put in the freezer, let the freezer catch up with all that meat. By the time we bring it from the smokehouse, it's generally at like 40, somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees, chilled from outside, immediately cut up, put in the freezer, quickly freezes. That's the trick. With small animals, the same thing is true. You cannot butcher 50 chickens and then expect them to put them in one small freezer unless they're chilled first. Does that make sense? That's why we don't do really big batches of chickens. We do like maybe 5 chickens at a time because then the freezer can keep up with getting them chilled. And you need, if that's what you're doing and you have warmer meat, you need it to be in different places in the freezer, not on top of each other in the freezer, because then the carcass in the middle will get insulated from the cold and it'll rot. It needs to get down cold quickly. Hello, Ready Lion. Hello from Hindustan. Angela Nadeau said, I'd love to raise my animals, but I know my limitations. And you do have to know that. I think if you can't raise animals, make sure that you keep your food storage topped at the top and make sure you cycle through it. Milk Bucket said, thank you for producing so much helpful content. You are so welcome. I love your name. I got to go check out your channel. Do you do milk goats? I can't see from your avatar, but I got to go check that out. Kevinsky Latoniu said, chicken pandemic has been around you. That's what they say, but our chickens are free range and they seem to be just fine. I think that having quail would be an even better idea because then you can kind of sequester them even better. Almost Heaven Homestead said, look up Rex 84. This has been planned for 40 years. Is that like Brexit? Andrew Blue said, Rain Country is announcing a collaboration between subscribers. Haven't seen it, but that sounds interesting. Maybe a similar thing would be great in this forum. We could share our homestead experiences. That sounds fun. I love Rain Country. 1 million pumpkins. I missed it. There's a company that makes Hopper Popper. It is a metal crooked bar that you slide the neck until it's cradled and then yank the legs back to separate the spine from the skull. Dies instantly. Yeah, I've seen that. Because we do I don't know. When we started doing, here's the truth. When we started doing rabbits, I couldn't afford something like that. I had seen the Hopper Popper types of things, but I was broke just buying my rabbits. And I was even more broke just buying some rabbit food to take care of them. And then putting cage together, I used those magic squares that you saw. That's how I put my cages together. I really was on a shoestring. And so the way that we learned to do it was to, after the animal was dead, we just took a length of baling twine and hung it from my kid's swing set. And so we'd have like 5 rabbits hanging from a piece of twine dead on a swing set. And because that's the way I taught my kids how to do it. A piece of baling twine isn't expensive. So the reason we do it the way we do is because that's how we've always done it. It doesn't mean the hopper popper isn't a better option. It might be a better option. But for one thing, I always feel a little intimidated about like pulling on the animal and worrying about whether or not I did it efficiently or not. And so maybe part of it is also just a little bit of fear. I've seen people do it. And that's one of the ways that I saw where the animal suffered, because the guy did it like that. He broke the neck, but then he immediately stuck the leg on a sharpened nail to hang it, to butcher it. And the animal was still alive enough, having had its neck broken, it was still alive enough to scream. Oh, it's horrific to scream because the guy just shoved its leg on a sharpened nail to hang it instead of like using a string or some other hook or something to hold the leg. And so I saw that even when you break the neck, it's possible for them to feel pain. So I haven't done that because I saw him do that, and it was really traumatic. It was horrible. And that meat was bad. We bought some meat from him that he had butchered, and that rabbit meat was bad. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Oh. Sorry, I had flashbacks. Yeah, 1 Million Pumpkins said they include a back leg hanger so you hang it upside down to clean. Yeah, I have seen them. I haven't used them, but I've seen a similar method, and I have flashbacks. But that doesn't mean it wouldn't work for you. It probably would work for you. I've probably just got my own issues going on. Andrew Blue said, oh, I love Catherine from Little Bits of Heaven. She's so nice. She is wonderful, isn't she? Sheila Fate said, thank you so much for good information. Hopefully it's good information. Milk, 1 million potatoes. Whoa, I must be getting tired. 1 million pumpkins said, milk spray controls powdery mildew too. Interesting. I'm not sure if I've ever used it like that. Rachel Jacobs said, milk has parasites. Well, it can. That is true. I think that's probably one of the reasons why they say they like to pasteurize it. For me, I am more concerned about parasites from like my pets than I am milk. But at the same time, if you have sensitive health and you can't drink milk or use it, I think there's no judgment call against you for needing to be careful about your own health. For me, if I don't have goat's milk, my health is pretty poorly. I've used it as almost as a supplement since I was a kid. That being said, there's beneficial strains of bacteria and sometimes beneficial strains of even parasites for certain things, or parasites can be an indication of an unbalanced body health, because most living things have parasites of one kind or another. If you look at your skin underneath the microscope, you're going to see living things on your skin. And most animals have some forms of parasites. People have forms of parasites. And as long as you have good health, they generally aren't an issue. They're just something you live with. And there are natural forms of parasite cleansers, but a lot of times having vibrant health is the difference. For instance, I had a rabbit that had a terrible case of roundworm. Oh my gosh, it was so gross. Completely full of roundworm. And yet there were other rabbits that were with that rabbit that had 0 roundworm in them. When I butchered the 2 rabbits, one was full of roundworm. The other one that had been in the same space with it had 0 roundworm. This animal was not healthy before the roundworm attacked its system and took control. This one had been in the same space, eating the same food on the same ground, and had 0 roundworms because it was healthy before the roundworm was ever in the system, in the place where they were living. And so if you're concerned about parasites, it's legitimate, but it's also legitimate that good, vibrant health is not as sensitive to such things as somebody who already has a compromised immune system. For me, my system is incredibly compromised if I don't have goat's milk. So do I care that there could be parasites in the milk? I don't care, because my system, at least where milk is involved, is pretty strong. And I also give dewormer to my animals. And it's just, if you grow a garden and you're eating anything that has soil contact, you probably are coming in contact with parasites. And if they haven't overrun your system, it means that you have a tolerance against those parasites. That means they don't stay with you for very long. They keep moving. They go on to another life form. Kathy Marsden said, I got 4 bags of sawdust, 6, ready to go. 6 gallons of vegetable ferments, contents of swimming pools, peat moss, perlite, potting soil, fish emulsion are my resources for today. Sounds like you're set to go. And John is bringing them. Perhaps the rain will stop this afternoon. Are you ready for transplant cold hardy? I think I am. I might actually put them out in the garden and put milk jugs over the top, but I do really need the grow light, the shop light that you said I could borrow. Because I've got some special seeds I've got coming in, and I want to see if they're going to make it. I got several different varieties of ground cherry that I want to try. I got them from the Land Race book, the Land Race Seed Saving Guide. He has a website that has a lot of ground cherry varieties that I want to try. And so I just ordered some of those. They should be here anytime. Andrea Blue said, my middle son is a good helper. My daughter, 12, would puke or cry during a butcher process. She assisted plucking, but no internal work nor present during the dispatch, which I think is just fine. With my girls, they started doing, my oldest was 12 and my youngest was 10 when I started turning over more of the butchering to them, or having them help more hands-on. Plucking, yeah, wasn't a big deal. But they've been assisting me to hold the animal when I'm dispatching it more. And now they just do it themselves. Paige is 15, Kai is 12, and they do all the outside small animal butchering and then bring it in, and I finish cleaning it up before it goes in the freezer. And Paige has done half the butchering before on a sheep and a pig. She's getting better with the large animal stuff. Lona Pritchett said, I need to go homeschool. Thank you for all the information. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks, Lona. Okay, Andrew said, how long do you let poultry rest before freezing? Most of my birds have been tough. Make great broth, though. At least 2 days. If you do it fresh, if you butcher and then cook it the same day, it is tough. The rigor mortis really sets in. But also know that if you have free-range birds, if they're allowed to run and scratch and do all the fun things that birds want to do, they're going to be tougher than what you get in the grocery store anyway, just because their muscles are developed. Andrea Blue said, I noticed the ammonia when I need acids like lime, lemon, or vinegar. I use these as digestive aids, and yuck, not so much lately, though. Interesting. Cheryl said, I just love watching you in the morning while I'm having my coffee. Well, thank you. I like doing this because then I'm not nitpicking at the kids while they're doing their chores. I'm working very, very hard on not rescuing them with their chores. That instead of kind of facilitating them and making it easier on them in the morning and like going out and finishing up little details that they didn't quite get, I'm working very hard on sitting down and letting them do their own work. I have my own work, they have their own work, and I need to not be following up. They need to do their own work. And so doing the live stream in the morning when they're supposed to be getting up and getting ready for school and getting chores done and stuff like that, it's very helpful for me just to sit here so I can ignore any of the details that are driving me a little crazy when they're doing chores. All right. Milk Bucket said, LOL, no, I unfortunately am not farming it. I'm a city looking to bug out. I like that. Right now, I see that I have anxiety bouncing back and forth about where a good location is to homestead. I have deep anxiety right now about how dependent we are on our irrigation system, on our dams, because one of our state representatives is trying to get our dams breached, and that's the only way we have water in the summer for irrigation. And I feel major anxiety about that. I have a lot of anxiety because the weather is a little weird. It's April. We haven't had any rain. Today's the first day we've had rain. And I think everybody else feels the same way. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here watching my channel right now. Is that I think that we all have a lot of anxiety right now and some stress wondering what we can do to help our families. Right now, I would love to have property in the South because I would feel like I would have a buffer of time if it turned out that we didn't have water here and weather became more inhospitable as far as cold and not getting water. See, I'm kind of spiraling. I think the magic bullet for me is having property in the South. But really the magic bullet is to grow where you're planted, stay the course, prepare as best you can, and say your prayers. You know what I mean? Almost Heaven Homestead said Rex 84 is a government plan, declassified now. Interesting. I'll have to write that down. Do I want to know? That's the question. Do I want to know? It was really overwhelming when I heard about Azure Standards headquarters burning down. That just, oh, that was overwhelming. Do I want to know about Rex 84? Demi Brock said, my husband pops the rabbits with the 2x4, cuts that off, then I do the rest. So very similar to what we do. Yeah. 1 Million Pumpkin said the hopper popper is a little pricey, but it made dispatch tolerable for us. Yeah. Whatever works for you, your method that you're comfortable with is the method to use. Don't let anybody tell you that another way works better. Exactly. Mrs. America Freedom, 1776, said almost heaven. Okay, sorry. I won't read the one that you're telling somebody else. Caribbean said, I thought this was about seeds, not a fan of the butcher talk. I understand you do this, but don't watch those videos. Love your channel, but please stay in disruption. If you wanted to hear about the seeds, go back to the beginning of the stream when I was talking about seeds. Right now, I'm answering questions quite a bit. Exactly. 1 Million Pumpkins said if it screamed, it wasn't dead yet. Yeah. Oh, I'm missing things. Oh, okay, it skipped down. Okay. Wild Edible said, I've started cleaning rabbits on my table, laying it down, and gut bucket under the table. It's not that messy when you get the hang of it. Andrew Blue said, I could not imagine being around a cruel and bad butchering experience. Oh my goodness, I'd be scared off from butchering. I wonder how far off I am from comments. My neighbor friend used a rubber thing and got them on the head. It seemed to knock them out and then roped them by the feet, and it seemed to butcher them. Is that a normal way? I don't know if there is such a thing as a normal way. I think there's the way that you find that you feel is effective. And again, it's good to have a friend who can teach you. Abundantly Blessed Homestead said, best garden plant fertilizer is from Soil Works. All natural and cheap, keeps bugs away, and holes in cabbages grow closed. Soil Works. I'll have to write that down. I'm not familiar with Soil Works. Soil Works fertilizer and Rex 84. Looks like I have my research to do. Well, yeah, Wild Edible said, I've seen someone knock my rabbits in the head and I didn't like it because if you got them wrong, they scream. Yeah, Village Setter said most parasites are host specific. Very true. Angela Nato says, your amazing catch and your live is so helpful. When you answer real questions, it's a wonderful resource. Your one channel I won't mind supporting. Blessings to your household. Thank you, Angela. Wild Edible said, I use a broomstick. Same for chickens. It works well. And if you didn't get it just right, you can do it again very quickly so they don't suffer. Thank you for that. Miss America said, I need to skip my comment, Julie. You do it too often. Oh, well, I figure if you're talking to somebody else, I don't want to like get in there and like read the conversation you're trying to have with somebody else. I do appreciate you saying kind things about my tone of voice. Let's see. If you want me to read it out loud, put it in all caps, and it's easier for me to see that you want me to read it out loud. Abundantly Blessed Homestead said, great for all plants, including orchards, no more apple worms. So that's the Soil Works again. 1 Million Pumpkin said, I could never whack a rabbit in the head. Different strokes for different folks. We haven't had one scream yet. I understand the purchase unit is expensive, though. It is $80. Yeah. Some of them are really well made. And I was really impressed looking at it. I know when we first got into rabbits, an $80 purchase, pretty much when I was experimenting with rabbits, I knew that I was already kind of a little over my head with my budget, and so I didn't get one. But yeah, I totally get it. If it works, and and from what I've seen, they look like they last a long time. So I don't think that's a bad purchase. Wild Edible said, LOL, well done. It's hard to not watch over them, but better for them to learn without you hovering. Let's see. I keep missing comments. And then I keep having to scroll back and start back over. Okay. Okay. Miss American Freedom said, I keep trying to have your name highlighted, new to these chats. Yeah, and I haven't been doing chats again it's been a long time because our internet wasn't strong enough. So I'm not very good at it. T-Hand, hello, hello. Andrea said homestead in Indiana. Yeah, one thing that I keep thinking is we just need to get a little bit further south. What we've been able to do here is amazing, but I can't imagine what it'd be like to live somewhere with rain so that it wasn't such a grunt just to even get grass to grow. Village Setter said, wherever you go, there are problems. So true. Grandma Ginger said, lots of water catchment. For us, we can't do water catchment. We just don't get enough rain. It wouldn't make any difference. We have so little. Almost Heaven Homestead said, my grandfather used to raise rabbits on the balcony in the city. Every Sunday, one would disappear. That's how my grandfather-in-law fed his family when they lived in Nevada. They had meat rabbits. And I'm trying to remember if he had them in the ground or something to keep them from getting too hot. I don't remember. Angela Nato said, if you live in the South, butchering animals your way would be basically impossible. Yeah, it's true. Andrew Blue said, we have similar weather, but I get 2 more months of growth. Yeah, it makes a difference, the intensity of the cold and which month the cold leaves. Even though we have the same type of cold, deep cold, when does that cold go away? You know? Okay, T-Han said, this is good for anybody who doesn't know how to get my attention. Put the and before the name with no space, then choose the name, and then it pops up. Deborah Henderson, good morning. Good morning. DW, do you sell your rabbits to state of Florida? I don't ship my rabbits. People have to come get them from the homestead. And these are rabbits that are used to extreme cold, not necessarily extreme heat. A lot of times animals in the southern countries have a much bigger problem with parasites and struggling with heat and that kind of thing, different food sources. So I say try to find somebody who raises meat rabbits in your area and get them from them and get tips from them on how to do it successfully. Susan said, seeds get used to where they're grown. They get stronger and robust, survive. I reuse my larger seeds, the tiny herb seeds I buy. Yeah, that's my understanding. And one of the new books that I'm reading is The Land Race Gardening by Loft House, I think is his name. I'm considering getting it because I'm interested in what would happen if I just planted everything I have and then just harvest the seeds from the plants I like. And even though they're crossbred and now hybrid, would it be better for my area than something that I'm purchasing somewhere else, you know? Oh, no. Mrs. America Freedom said, what's nice with live chat is we all get to communicate nowadays. We who would like to stay self-sufficient are being ridiculed. It is kind of an interesting situation, isn't it? I find it very interesting. I feel like people are isolated in their own little groups right now, and I think that's really unfortunate, not being able to cross-pollinate and share ideas without getting offended. It seems like being offended is kind of a way of life right now, and it's been very interesting having so many people from Oregon and Washington and California come here. And some of my preconceptions have been solidified. We've had some people that stole from us that were from Washington. And that was very disappointing. And yet we've also had a lot of people from California that are here to really try and make a difference. And they're very freedom-minded and very self-reliant minded. And so it's been very interesting because we have a lot of new people moving in. And at the same time, we also have to have guards at our grocery store now, which has never been a thing. Theft has never really been a big thing in our little town. And now it's a big thing where our population is growing so quickly. And it's very sad to me that that's a thing, that we have so much theft now. 1 Million Pumpkin said, we have lambs now, and I know it will be harder to dispatch that larger species, but it's a journey I'm committed to. It's pretty much like a big rabbit. The only difference is that your structure that you're hanging them from needs to be a little bit stronger, and you need a couple more people there to help with the dispatch so that things cool quickly. But if you butchered a rabbit, you can butcher a sheep. But it's really important to get the meat cool and it's really important to have something in the crock pot cooking before you start so that you can eat throughout the day as you need to, because you can't quit until you're finished. But it's hard if you don't have the calories to keep working. So have favorite beverages, have something in the crock pot, and have as many people home as possible for that day so that you can tag team with each other. And then after you have the animal cleaned and hung, let it chill. And once it's chilled, that buys you some time to get some good rest, calm down, eat some good meals, and then do it section at a time. We like to bring it in a quarter at a time to process it. So we just don't try to do it all in one day because it's exhausting if you do. Okay. Okay, so if you guys are having conversation between each other, I'm going to try and not eavesdrop. Okay. Oh my goodness. I don't know how far behind I am. I don't think I'm that far behind now. Okay, Tihan said, absolutely. I have people tell me just to go to farmers markets. And yes, oh, that was another conversation. It's 30 behind the last comment, like 30 minutes behind the last comment, or like 30 comments behind the last comment? Okay, so I don't know. If you guys do you guys have instructions for me about, like, do you want me to scoot forward and like skip some of the questions that people are asking? Demi said shooting the rabbit in the head with a 22 is instant. It is, but ammo is really expensive right now. And if you're not good with it, you might accidentally not do it correctly. So I guess it also depends on how confident you are with a firearm in a cage that also has other animals in it, because we keep all of our babies that we're going to butcher together so we can have up to like 12 rabbits in one big cage. And so if you're very confident that your animal's not going to move and you're not going to shoot yourself in the hand by holding your animal that you're planning on shooting still, it kind of depends on how confident you are. All right. Okay, Wild Edible said, you're right, but we don't have a gun or can't shoot one in town anyway. But if I was in the country, it'd be the best way. The broomstick method leaves bruising on the neck. Yeah, and so does whacking them on the head if you don't get it right the first time. Oh, hi, Mr. Zinedin. What is Top Chat? Okay. Am I not at the top? I'm trying. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm really trying. Jennifer Anger said, "You're so sweet to try and read all the comments." I just don't like to miss them. Some of you, the comments are so interesting and things I haven't thought of, or like the soil work stuff where I just don't want to miss anything. Okay, Keith said, "I use a plastic food grade barrel with cold water and ice when I process meat to help cool it down." Yeah, and if you're in a warm weather area like the South, it's probably what you would have to do. The guy that I watched brutally butcher rabbits, he used ice water. He would dunk the carcass in ice water after he had it butchered, and his meat still tastes terrible. So I always discounted that method just because it was associated with him. But I think it's a great idea. I do think it's a great idea. It's not something I've ever done, but I saw it done once in a bad situation, and so I've never tried it myself. Let's see. Hey, Bumblebee. I don't know. Some of these I'm not very good at. Yeah, Wild Edible said it's hard with rabbits. People start raising them and cannot harvest them. A bad experience can really put people off. Raising rabbits has been rewarding for me in many ways. So I would raise rabbits just for their manure. We do like to eat them. We love to eat them fried and also stir fried. Those are our two favorite ways to do it. And we've also found we have to butcher them at like 8 or 10 weeks because otherwise they get too big. And we don't like to eat leftover rabbit is what we've found. Like the next day, we don't like to eat it because rabbit is very dry. It's very lean. Angela Nato said, "I brought my son to get a TIP card yesterday, and on the way home, he wanted Burger King. No judgment, please." He told me the lady at the counter said people were stealing their water. Like inside or like outside at like a spigot. That's very interesting. I will not judge you about Burger King. What we have locally is Wendy's. And so if we are starving and we have to eat something, we'll have a Wendy's hamburger without the bun, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's no judgment there. Okay. So I think I reached down to the bottom. Okay, Jennifer said she'll be a moderator. Add moderator. Thank you, Jennifer. Monique M said, "Deep South Homestead, are you here?" Oh, they were on before. I don't know. I'm not very good at this. I'm not very good at this. Okay, somebody said that I need to remove somebody, so I tried to do that. Let's see if it works. Yeah, Joy the garden. Yep, you better go garden. I don't really. Okay, so Lisa Bauman said, "I'm buying rabbits this year because it's on the agenda. I just need to get with someone in my area to learn how to butcher them. Northwest Indiana. Anyone who is close, let me know." Isn't Andrea? Andrea, aren't you in Indiana? I don't know if you're close enough. Wild Edible said, "Our food grade bucket fits in the bottom of the fridge, fits 5 or so in there. I cut them up now and put legs in one bag and backs in another." I love that idea. So smart. We feed our cats the internal organs when we butcher. So we don't have any of that kind of thing left over. There we go. Okay, Jennifer, you should be a moderator now. I think I did that. Okay, thank you, Log Cabin. Okay. Okay, I think, did it work? I'm not very good at this. Oh, Andrew Blue said, "Some people think these are single ads, not homestead and family forums." Village Sitter said, "Is anyone here from Western New York?" Okay, Log Cabin, did I actually add you? Yeah, I did. Okay, I'm not very good at this, guys. All right. Okay, were there any more questions that I missed? Otherwise, I should probably go eat my breakfast because it's 8:30 now, and we've been talking since 6:30. Stone Store Acres said, oh, you're talking to somebody else. Okay, Kathy said, yes, Jennifer now has a wrench. Okay. Yes. Wild Edible said, gotta meet up somehow. All right. Okay, so Andrea said she is in Indiana. Thank you, Bumblebee. And Angela said she'll have to go back to the beginning. Yeah, I talked mostly about the seeds at the beginning, and then we got into questions. And so I love you guys. What's the name? Main Street Seed and Supply for my bulk seeds. For other seeds, if you're just buying single packets, I love Mary's Heirloom Seeds and My Gardener, Territorial Seeds, and Baker's Creek. Those are the ones I like if you're getting seed packets. If you're getting bulk, I really like Main Street Seed and Supply. 11 asked not to do your location, but where in Idaho are you? We are Southeast Idaho. So high, cold desert. So, oh, if you want the ebooks, they're in the description for my Etsy store. It helps me get new projects out. I have to kind of ease my way into projects as I can pay for them. And so that's where that money goes, is new projects. How long did, here, I'll put it in. Main Street Seed and Supply.com. I think that's it. There you go. That's my bulk seed store that I get stuff from. I'm not an affiliate. I don't make any money from telling you about them, but the other ones, Mary's Heirloom Seeds and My Gardener are affiliates, and they do a great job too. Did it work? It has been a good morning, hasn't it? All right. I'm off to go eat breakfast. Talk to you guys later.